Why is it so important for companies to use tools like yours to build their websites?
So tools like Duda, which is a website builder, we kind of built this tool really focused on agencies and SaaS platforms that are offering websites to small businesses. I think the tools like us make it very easy for either like agencies or small businesses to create a website and get to an amazing kind of output in a very short time and with very little effort. Our tools today encompass a lot of AI capabilities that have made it, I would say, easier than ever to really have a great output and a beautiful site without needing to know too much about the world of website building and what is essentially needed to be found. At the end, people are building websites to be found. If it's to be found on Google or today to be found on some of the AI chat platforms like ChatGPT and so forth.
Hey, business leaders and marketers, what if your brand could be featured right here? This ad spot could be yours. This channel is watched by a dedicated audience of ambitious founders, executives, and professionals who are actively looking for tools and services to help their business grow. If you want to put your brand in front of this highly dedicated audience that's difficult to reach, I'm currently looking for a few strategic partners for the channel. To learn more about sponsorship opportunities, click the link in the description. Let's grow together. What's the biggest differentiator between Duda and something like a WordPress or a Wix for people who aren't really sure?
Yeah. So again, our target audience is mostly agencies, and it's agencies who are building websites at scale. These are digital marketers, web designers, freelancers, and I think the moment that you're building websites for your livelihood, you need a platform that was built for you, and this is exactly what Duda is. So for folks who are building at scale, and I'm talking about folks who are building tens, hundreds, thousands. Some of our customers are building tens of thousands of sites a year. You need a platform that allows you to really be productive and efficient at scale, manage that amount of sites without bogging you down about upgrades and maintenance. So we've put a lot of those tools in there to really help an agency or a freelancer build a beautiful site, but also easily manage their end clients and also manage the process of website building inside their own team, inside their own staff.
What have you noticed clients asking for in the last 6 months that you think is really going to change the way your company operates?
Yeah. So by no doubt, the biggest thing right now is AI, and especially AI discoverability being found on ChatGPT and so forth. I think there's an amazing opportunity right now for any business to think about that. It's a new channel. Historically, when we talked about SEO of how websites are being found, SEO was kind of equal to Google, but that world is shifting, and we're seeing the increase of traffic from some of these chat platforms because people are now not just going to Google, they're going to ChatGPT, Grok, Perplexity, all these tools. And I think there's an amazing opportunity now to think about your website as these tools really feed on content that is on these websites. And how can you optimize that content to make sure that when an end consumer is asking a question or a prompt on one of these chat platforms, that your website shows up in the results?
Is this something that you can code into your system that as the website is being created, the SEO is being built into it? Or is this something separate that still needs to really be worked on by the client directly?
So it's a combination of things that, from a technical perspective, the platform can take care of. This is integration. This is stuff that we do underneath the hood where the person building the site doesn't necessarily need to be involved. We take a lot of that hassle away. It's integration with the crawlers, the Bing crawler, the Google crawler, and updating them whenever content is changing. It's creating schemas. There's a lot of technical things that are being done that I don't want to kind of waste too much time on getting into those specifics. But I think those are good and nice. But really, the more important thing is the content on the website, and that doesn't change a lot from the kind of more legacy SEO world. It was always about content, right? Content is king. And what Google calls EEAT, I think is was relevant then and is relevant now. So that is an acronym that stands for experience, expertise, authenticity, and trustworthy of the content. So it's not about just adding more content to your website or having AI just spit out more content and adding those. It's really thinking about, how is your content relevant, coming from a trust? How is that content trustworthy? Is it unique? And this is what you still need humans to create that type of content. So I think the combination of what we do kind of underneath the hood, plus guiding small businesses who own websites to add more content that is relevant, I think that's kind of the winning combination.
So, are these LLMs penalizing companies for using LLMs to generate content?
Yeah, I don't know if penalizing is the right word, but I think just regurgitating content that is already out there, and that's kind of what typically LLMs do, and they don't create unique content. They just kind of read the content that is out there and kind of repurpose it for you in the prompt. I think that's not gonna get you as far as what human content will get you. I do think that humans should be aided by these LLMs. So I think maybe it's a good start. You can start many times when I write content. I could use ChatGPT or any of these tools to give me a good structure layout of content, but I would go in there and make quite a lot of changes myself and add my kind of more unique point of view, right? That's what would be missing, kind of the meat, the unique point of view. The LLMs are not going to give you that, and I think that's really what humans need to be adding. So really, LLMs aided by humans, or maybe the other way around to say it, humans aided by LLMs.
How much longer do you think people will be using elements and blocks? Like, for example, I used WordPress for years, and
Mhm.
for probably almost a decade or more, I was using Divi, where you have elements and you put information into these blocks. How much longer until these are dead, or are they already dead?
Yeah, great question. So I think what we'll see is, and we're already seeing it, a fun fact is that 65% of websites being created on Duda today are using one of our AI assistants. So we've kind of added multiple AI assistants in different stages of the site building process, and these are very heavily adopted capabilities today. So I think it's what I've seen, what I've noticed, and also talking to customers, and is that AI, again, it's very analogous to what I just mentioned before about writing content. We'll take it to the website building world. AI can give you a really great head start for a website, right? Today, with very little information, I can tell it, I want to build a site for, let's call it Itai's ski shop, and it will create a website with all ski equipment and snowboard equipment, and there'll be a lot of information there about skiing and so forth. So it's a good head start. But I think where people hit the challenge that people are noticing with these LLMs is many times that afterwards it maybe brings you kind of to the 80% completion of the project, but it doesn't bring you all the way to 100%. And many times kind of that last leg is very difficult to do just with text, just with kind of a chat interface, because you kind of know what you want and you're trying to get the chat to do what you tell it to do, but it's not doing that and it's changing everything else. So I think the combination, getting back to your question, of starting with the LLM and then having the complete control over the blocks that you mentioned, having the ability to, where there's an editor where you could do some things that sometimes it's easier to do it with just moving a block from the left to the right, going into a certain block and clicking the color palettes and choosing the color you want. And it's making a very kind of more anecdotal change. So I think the combination of both LLMs and some of these other interfaces that we've used in the past, I think is the winning combination.
How long until all of this is obsolete and we're just having voice calls with AIs that are building and maintaining our websites for us?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the voice is another interface, right? Chat is an interface. I think it's always about the right interface for kind of the job that you're doing. And it's many times, like I said before, it's the combination of multiple interfaces, voice, chat, WYSIWYG, kind of moving the cursor around and doing stuff. So I think I don't think there's going to be just one interface. I think it's just going to be a combination of these interfaces, and people will default to what is most comfortable. So maybe voice is will take over as kind of that initial interface to get a lot of the project done. But then, for kind of the last mile, that's maybe when you move into more either text or kind of WYSIWYG drag and drop.
How long do you think until this kind of functionality is prevalent?
Well, things are moving so fast. So I wouldn't believe it where, ChatGPT launched in kind of, I think that was November,
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Yeah. And look at where we are today. So it did move very, very quickly. And, I'm still astonished by some of the results that I get today, either in our own tool or just generally in other tools. And every other week, a new tool pops up and we're all amazed for a while. And then it kind of, oh yeah, that's of course that AI can do that. So, I don't know. Things are moving very quickly. I think it's very hard to forecast where we will be, 3 years from now.
What's been one of the difficult or one of the hardest things for you in running this business?
Yeah, I think it's always, growth is always something as a CEO that you think about. It's where will future growth come from? I don't think there's a single CEO that looks at revenue and says, "Oh, we're doing the best that we can. There's nothing more that we can do." Right? Everybody's thinking about what can I do more? How can I drive more growth? How can I accelerate that? Or how can I accelerate profitability? So I think a lot of times on future product direction. What are the next products that we should build? Where should we invest there? I think about how can I help my sales team achieve more. So I'm kind of pretty much very growth focused.
Do you ever get scared of your success? Or do you ever feel scared that it's going to go away?
Yeah, I think scared or worried or maybe concerned always of market changing. Like you see the biggest companies that we've known in the world, many companies, don't exist forever, or in their, they have their heydays and somewhere down the line, market dynamics change and they lose that, right? A lot of companies that we've known historically are, a shadow of themselves these days, like, companies like, IBM or BlackBerry or Nokia, right? Like things changed over in a decade or two, and I think in the same way about our company, and especially now with AI, I think about are we building the right things? I see tools out there like like the Lovables and the Repletes, kind of the new age way to build not just website, build apps, build websites. And I kind of think about, okay, what are we doing to compete with that? So I'm mostly as kind of the founder and the CEO, co-founder and CEO. My both me and my co-founder talk a lot about like the future direction. I feel like it's our job to constantly ensure that we have product market fit, right? That our customers, the product that we've built for our customers, always kind of is what they are is what they need and what they're looking for. And sometimes we need to think a couple of steps forward, right? Because by the time the change comes and they don't come and tell you we're moving away to a different platform. It kind of happens slowly, and you don't notice it, and then it happens all of a sudden, and that we can talk about it soon. That has happened historically in the 15-year journey of our company, where market dynamics changed and we needed to steer the ship. Kind of the ship is kind of that product market fit. We needed to steer our product to make sure that we're building the right thing that our customers need today and into the future. And I think that's kind of the main role of the founders and kind of the CEO, to ensure that we're on the right track.
How do you do that then? Because I think a lot of the people listening are very new to entrepreneurship, and they may not have been in your shoes where they've been responsible for one thing for a number of years, where they've had to think about, how do I remain relevant? Do you have a specific process for this, or?
I don't have a process for it. I think it's a lot about um, being attuned to the market and what's happening in the market, right? As kind of the founders, this is kind of your role. There's nobody else that is in charge of that in the company. It's your role to understand where the industry is going. It's your role to really listen very deeply to what customers are saying, and where constantly there's signals. The signals are pretty light in the beginning, and you need to pick up on these signals, right? If, for example, suddenly a competitor, like you lose a deal to a competitor that you have never lost before, then you kind of need to ask yourselves why. Like, what is this? Is this a one-time anecdotal thing that I lost this deal to this other platform, or could this be a beginning of a trend where I'm falling behind, or I'm not serving the exact needs of this customer? Especially if you lose a deal to someone who you think uh, to a prospect that you think would be a great fit for your product. So something there's kind of again, there are sometimes these signals as well, or suddenly a partner switching from your platform to another platform. Many times, like, companies, I think, are too slow to respond to these changes. And as I said, the changes initially, it's slow. It's a customer here, it's a customer there, and then it's kind of all of a sudden. And if you haven't built the right product or haven't made the right changes, it's just too slow, and kind of the market um, goes another direction, and you're not there. So I can give examples of when that happened in our journey, and it happened, once or twice. And I think we made the right decisions at in those times.
Yeah, I would definitely love to know more about that. It's very helpful to hear what happened and how you handled it.
Yeah. So initially, when Amir, my co-founder, and I launched the company in 2010, so we've been running the company for 15 years now. But when we launched it in 2010, it was a mobile-only site builder. it was kind of at the advent of mobile. iPhone launched in 2007, Android in 2008. Small businesses were inundated with traffic coming from these new mobile phones, and they still had these kind of desktop only websites that you had to kind of pinch and zoom. And I don't know if maybe a lot of your listeners are younger than that and don't remember that, but for us who've been around for quite a while, we remember that it was a terrible experience, even on the newest iPhones back then. But so our first product, what we did is we basically we built a tool that took the URL of a desktop, like of your desktop website, and we kind of reformatted this website to a mobile only site. So at that time, it was very common to have you have your desktop site, and then maybe you have a mobile only site with Duda, which kind of was your domain.
I'm familiar with this, yes.
You're familiar, remember that? And we really kind of pioneered that era around mobile websites, and we grew very, very quickly to hundreds of thousands of mobile only sites on our platform. And for 3-4 years, like the graph of growth was just like this, up and to the right. And you'd ask me who was our customer back then? Probably I would answer, anybody who needs a mobile website. That was like the clarity that we have around who is our who our ideal customer is. Fast forward like 3-4 years, with the proliferation of devices and different screen sizes, businesses didn't want to build a site for mobile, a site for desktop, a site for tablet. They kind of wanted to build it once and it runs on all screens. And kind of responsive web design rose as the right kind of paradigm or framework to do that. And we were noticing that, I think early, and we started to build kind of the next product that would be kind of this website builder that runs, you build it once and runs on all screens. And I think some of the competition, which kind of the Wix, the WordPress, the Squarespace, they were coming from the other side. They were desktop only, and they were trying to kind of become responsive. So everybody was racing in kind of the same direction or from different directions to the same point. And I think we all relatively came out with new solutions at the same time. And at that point, we were like suddenly in competition with some of these really big players, some of them public companies. And we were struggling there from being kind of the leader in mobile. We were kind of just another company that is offering websites. And it was a tough period. And we kind of asked ourselves, okay, why are customers going to come to Duda? What's unique about us? And maybe this is like, I'm talking about four years into the company, and we're asking kind of pretty substantial questions. And we looked at our user base, and about 50% were small businesses, but the other 50% were these web designers, digital marketers, agencies building websites on behalf of small businesses. And the data showed us that they were growing faster for us than the single small business. I think we also kind of, from an engineering perspective, from a cultural perspective, we understood them better. There was a preference to build kind of the more sophisticated tools that these folks who were serving SMBs needed. So we made this kind of pivot at that point that we are going to focus on basically 50% of our customers. We are going to become this web pro company. We also thought that there was a big opportunity, as we saw that these other platforms that I mentioned earlier were very much focused on the small business. So we felt these web professionals were underserved with the existing tools, and we thought we could solve that problem better. So from that day onwards, we didn't spend $1 until today to acquire a small business. We understood that we were a web pro company, and that brought tremendous amount of focus to all levels in the company, like from engineering that was constantly before that torn between small businesses asking for simplicity and these web professionals asking for flexibility and powerful tools. From that day onwards, it became very clear on which product request you focus on. And marketing knew at what level to message, and sales understood better who their customer is. And I think this really propelled that decision, which was not an easy decision, by the way, really propelled us to where we are today, kind of as a web pro focused company.
How long did it take for you to recognize the situation and then make that pivot?
Right. So really there were kind of the two pivots, right? The first pivot was more of a product pivot, right?
Mm.
From a mobile only product to this responsive website builder. And I think that was a very difficult pivot. The name of the company back then was Duda Mobile. So we were kind of a mobile only, mobile focused company. And suddenly, you know, me and my co-founder come to the management later to the company and say, hey, we're going to go fully responsive. We're not going to just stay in this mobile niche. We think that, you know, the future of the company, we have to build this product that solves for all different types of screens. I think that was I think it required quite a few conversations, and we persuaded them that this is the right way to go. We pointed, I think, always coming grounded with data and showing, especially if you start to see some slowdown in certain areas, like we're a very data first, data focused company. And even when you try something new, you're not betting the whole farm. So we had a lot of revenue riding kind of on mobile, and then we kind of built the second product, and I'm glad that we did that, because at some point the revenue from mobile started flatlining, and because of the dynamics changing in the market. And gladly we had this other product, but it was still very small, right? When you're making millions of dollars on product A, and there's product B that is now starting from scratch, it took probably 2 years for
Mm.
that new product to kind of be 50% of the revenue. And those were, two pretty difficult years of like flat growth. We were not able to raise money from VCs at that time. We had money from VCs from like our Series A, Series B, but it was 2 years that it was clear to us that we could not raise. With flat growth, you can't kind of go out and raise money. The good thing is that for the folks who were internal to the company, we saw the growth rate from the new product, and we were very optimistic that it's just a matter of time that it will eclipse the revenue from the original product. So, and I think with the success, it's easier to gain more uh, with the early success, and looking at the data and the adoption rate. You slowly get more buy-in also internally to give this new product, its space and the resources that it requires to grow. So it's very, initially you have kind of this new product, and maybe marketing doesn't want to give it too much real estate on the homepage, because they're still very focused on selling like product A that's actually paying everybody's salaries. So you give it some small space. Over time, as it kind of starts to grow and becomes bigger, it gets more real estate, more promotion, more resources within the company. So it's not that you one day just jump blindly to focus on a product. It's you give it enough resources to see some level of success, and then you invest more and more as it grows.
And so by the time you now had this second product that was 50-50 split between the developers and the small businesses, how long did it take for you to figure out that you needed to just focus on one of them? Where you finally said, okay, we've got this, we're going to do this, let's go.
I think by the time that it was 50-50, it was very, very clear. Like it was very clear before that, that just one product is in decline and one product is growing, double digits. So it was very clear early, pretty early, that this is kind of the future of the company.
I mean, where you said that you're going to stop focusing on the small businesses.
Oh yeah,
Right. So the second pivot.
the second pivot. Yeah, we didn't talk about the second pivot. So the second pivot, right? So the first product is growing, but you're still kind of challenged with, um, I think back then, yeah, like if you think about the website, it was, and how we would market, it was primarily, focused on SMBs, and somewhere in the navigation you would find kind of, hey, and here's our partner program. So if you want to kind of resell our product to small businesses, if you're in, or here's kind of the agency plan for those who are building multiple sites and they get discounts. And over time, I think the switch that happened, that second pivot, is basically understanding that that thing that was just uh, a menu item in the navigation, which was selling through channels, through agencies, this is kind of the future of the company. And that kind of became, with the iterations, became the core thing that we were doing. We were just acquiring more of these agencies and selling, those plans, and it kind of switched from just being an item in the navigation to, hey, this is the website. When you come to the website, the language talks to web professionals. The pricing page is for web professionals. We by the way never fired the small businesses. So in no place did we shut the service down for small business until today. If you're a small business and you're more technically inclined and you want to use our platform, there's what we call the basic plan, and there's quite a lot of SMBs using it. We're just not focused on them. We're not necessarily building the features for them. We're not marketing or messaging to them. But it's the internet. Anybody is free to use it, and if this is the right tool for you, like, go ahead.
Is there anything I haven't asked that you feel would be important to mention?
So I think one learning that uh, is important, especially for entrepreneurs, is there's no one single right way to succeed. There's a lot of different paths uh, to success. There's also a lot of paths that lead to failure, but focusing more on success, I think it's good to have mentors along the way, and it's good to read and study and learn about the success of others. But I think it's important to remember that there's no one template for how to build a company. So listen to a lot of people, learn from other use cases and other companies, but at the end you have to make up your own way. And yeah, so there isn't just like this single playbook, and it's not necessarily that if other companies did A, that if you would do A, that it would succeed. At the end, it's kind of the role of the founders, the management team, to kind of craft their own way, their own journey. And yeah, so don't let anyone tell you that there's only one way to do things.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this insight, I've handpicked another video for you right here on the screen. For more actionable strategies that get you real results, hit subscribe.